In part one, we talked about 1,260 days in the wilderness, homelessness, uncertainty, and the birth of a vision called Trinity. But today's conversation takes us into a different kind of wilderness. This is the story of a body that failed without warning, a diagnosis that didn't match the lifestyle, and a day that was held where three cardiac events in one day took place. Despite exercise, despite a healthy diet, despite doing everything right, Adrian was living with a genetic heart condition that no one saw coming. Chris was told that if he survived, he would never be the same, and statistically, only about 2% survived what he experienced. And even then, the life expectancy is often shortened to just a few more years. But here they are, 7 years later, still married, still serving, still standing. This episode is not about survival. It's about grief. It's about faith under pressure. It's about loving someone through the fear of losing them. And it's about what a comeback really looks like. Welcome back, Adrian and Chris. Welcome to Emerging with Grace. I'm loving having you here, and I'm glad that you chose this podcast to listen to. Please like, subscribe, and share so that more people can get to know how to emerge with grace. Thank you. Okay, I am back with the Murrays. And as we were getting off our last podcast, they said, oh yeah, that wasn't the end of the story. So we are back for part 2. And I'm just going to let you guys jump on in and tell us what went on after the wilderness.
Yeah, so I mean, coming out that whole time, it was we were literally just trying to get back on our feet. We were so blessed to get into that parsonage, and then so many doors opened up for us, including being able to get into our apartment. And like we didn't have anything. I mean, we were just happy just to have a roof over our heads, some running water, a place to call our own for a while. And I remember it took us a while too. I mean, we literally had to walk around and pray over the entire apartment for furniture, just for like little things, and we were like believing God, like, we don't know what's going to happen, but we believe in God. But the specific thing I do remember is, we really prayed for God, prayed to God for what we wanted, what we were believing God for, because we could have gotten maybe like some older stuff, some hand-me-down things, stuff like that. But, we were believing God for something big because he had just done something big for us. And lo and behold, I mean, everything that we prayed for, honestly, even more than we prayed for, we received because our faith was so strong coming out of the wilderness season. And it just continued to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So, 2015, 2016, 2017, we were just getting back on our feet. And by that time, we had gotten jobs and we were stable and all these different things. And things were just looking up. Like
This founded Trinity.
Yeah. Yeah, we founded Trinity, like we said before, March 3rd, 2017. And it was time to go. We were planning, we were trying to figure out how it was really going to come about. And I mean, we already had all the blueprint, that God had downloaded, especially to Crystal during the wilderness. But we were just really trying to work some things out. So we're really kind of in that moment. 2018 happens, the beginning of it, we're feeling optimistic. We celebrated a 1-year anniversary with Trinity. And by this time, I actually got, I had a job at a high school. I ended up becoming a high school teacher, which was, it was funny. I never would imagine that I would be, but then at the same time I did, because I came from a family of educators. My mom was a teacher. My brothers are teachers or kind of teachers. Cousins, aunts, uncles, so many. And so it wasn't a huge surprise for me for that. But I become a teacher by now. And and then 2018 and happened, and October 10th, 2018 was the day that I died, basically. It was an interesting day. Good.
Okay, it started out very interesting. So when we wake up in the morning, we have this whole thing where we ask each other about how'd you sleep? Did you have any weird dreams? That was just a norm for us. So we actually ended up exchanging, our thoughts of our dreams. And both of us shared that we had dreams about people very close to us dying. And it kind of like, it's like, oh, so what we ended up doing after we shared both of our dreams, we prayed.
Yeah, we was like, we would do that. Like we're
Yeah, we
like
ended
thinking
up
this.
praying. Because we were like, I don't know what that means, but that's very rare to both have, dreams about death. And I don't dream about death and things like that. And neither does Adrian. So it's very out of the ordinary. So we actually prayed about that and then kind of went on with our day. Adrian went off to school. I remember that day very vividly because I was supposed to be traveling. So for the job I was working at the time, I was working for a state agency and I had to travel the state a lot. And I was packing my bags to head to Northern Virginia to spend a few nights. And we said our goodbyes. And it was like a extra long hug type of goodbye because I wasn't gonna see him for a few days. But not thinking, much of it like it didn't feel like it was going to be an eventful day at all. We
Mm.
felt fine. Everybody, Adrian was himself.
Mhm.
No indication that anything traumatic was about to happen. So, he goes off to school. I, kind of get myself ready to get on the road and do my overnight trip. And then you can take over from
So yeah, so I go to school. So we have I had a freshman homeroom that year. So we all as teachers we tend to have a homeroom, and my homeroom happened to be a freshman homeroom. And the cool thing about my school is we have different kind of spirit things that we do to like build up camaraderie and school spirit and things like that. And so one of the things we do is something called Battle of the Freshmen, like Battle of the Freshmen kind of thing. And during all that, you do like different fun games, activities, and things like that. And so today, or that day specifically, we had to do two things. We had to create a banner, like we had like a classroom banner, and we were going to play a game of Tug-of-War. And so I felt good about that because I had a lot of athletes and strong looking guys on this. So I was like, I felt good about it. So we went into the gym, and usually teachers have an option on whether they want to participate or not. And my kids were like, yeah, Mr. Murray, you have to come. You have to do this with us. And I was like, well, sure, why not? I was feeling, I was feeling strong and all that kind of stuff. And I looked around at the other teachers and I was like, yeah, we definitely have an advantage. So so I was like, okay, cool, that's good. And so we're playing tug of war with other the other classes, and I mean, we're beaten. Like it wasn't even close. And so we get to like the semifinals, I think, semifinals, and I'm in the back, and I'm, they say go, and we're tugging. Now, this one was a hard match. Like we were really pretty evenly matched with another homeroom, and we're pulling, 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 and it took us about, I would say, at least 2 minutes or so just to win. Which I mean, doesn't seem like a long time, but when you're pulling for 2 minutes, that's kind of a long time. And so I'm pulling, 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 and we eventually win. But like immediately after that, I was like, yeah, but then I kind of felt a little lightheaded, and literally it just blacked out, like blacked out. And so I come to, and what they tell me, it wasn't that long. It was maybe like a few seconds or so. And I come to, and everybody's checking on me like, hey, are you okay? And everything. Now, mind you, like I'm in front of like the entire freshman class because all of them are there, and all of them kind of like see me, pass out, on the gym floor. And so they kind of rushed me to the back just to make sure that I'm okay. And they called a nurse, and I get some water and things like that. And so I go to the side and I sit down. But the weirdest thing was happening. Like usually when you sit down after exerting energy, you start to like relax a little bit. Your heart rate comes down. You start cooling down, things like that. And that didn't happen for me. My heart rate actually increased from the time I was playing tug of war to then. It just kept on going up and up and up. And I was sitting down, I was drinking water, I wasn't saying anything, I was just trying to take deep breaths and all that kind of stuff. And my heart rate just kept on going. I felt it. I literally felt like my heart rate just going up and up and up. And I remember like a little bit from that time. I remember they were trying to get me to say things, and I was trying to, but I really couldn't. And then it got to the point where I just collapsed. And so obviously, I don't remember much after that. Most of the things are from what they tell me. So apparently, what they did after that was they brought me. I was obviously on the ground. They got the nurse. Well, the nurse was already there. They called 911. And between that time and I got rushed to the hospital, between that time that I first collapsed and I got to the hospital, I suffered 3 cardiac arrests to where they had to use the paddles and all that stuff. And I mean, I was done. I mean, I was really done. And thank God that we had just a tremendous like team of nurses and EMS workers, because they didn't take me to the closest hospital. They took me to the hospital that was more known for heart like emergencies and things of that nature.
That he made that. So yeah, at this point they're calling me now, and I'm about to head in my car and head up 95, and someone calls me and they're like, "You need to come to Chippenham Hospital. Something's happened with your husband." And I said, "Okay," but the whole time I had this strange kind of peace over me. I wasn't scared. I don't know why. I can't explain that. It was like an out of body experience the whole time. They didn't disclose a lot on the phone. And I was like, okay, you know, let's see what this is all about. He's gonna be okay and whatever. I get there. As soon as I get there, I'm met by, I guess he was a head cardiologist. And he's like, ma'am, we are doing, well, first they call me and they have me go into this area where you have to put in insurance information and end of life plans already.
Oh,
Because they were not expecting him, to make it. Then I get pulled into the socket room. It's not the good room. It's kind of a side room in the hospital where they pull you over to, and then this head cardiologist comes out and he's like, "Ma'am, we are doing everything we can for your husband, but we don't think he's going to make it." And that peace was still over me. And I'll tell you exactly what I told him. I looked at him. I said, "Sir, I know you have a job to do, but I'm going to have to rebuke that in the name of Jesus." And then he looked at me, he said, "Okay, ma'am." And then he just went on.
Like, how are you supposed to respond to that? You know what I mean? What you go right back. We got pieces on the live, bro.
And I'm like, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. And, kind of went on with my people. And they were saying, "Okay, ma'am, do you want us to call your husband's, is there anyone we can call? Any family?" And I just gave them my phone. I say, "Yeah, you can call his parents." And so they called his parents and all of that. When they were able to get in touch with them, and they immediately left, South Carolina and came to Virginia. And then meanwhile, I'm having to make all these phone calls to my employer, because I didn't have a very compassionate employer at this time. They were asking me if I was still going to be able to make it to Northern Virginia. Yeah. And they were saying, "Are you going to be able to make it tonight?"
Like I know he's on his deathbed, but
Like, no, no, I'm not. I'm not going to be able to make it. So, yeah. So time goes by and we're just kind of waiting. I think maybe 2 hours go by. And this starts to feel like a day to me because time's starting to go by and I'm hearing these alerts going off in the hospital. But I'm still praying in my spirit and believing that everything's going to be okay. Because when they first initially told me that they didn't think he was going to make it, immediately what flashed in my mind was all of the promises that God had made. And the one promise that stood out to me was that we were going to have a daughter. And we were told that years before in our wilderness season. I'm thinking very instantly, well, there's so many things that God had promised that hasn't happened yet. My God's not a liar. So I can't accept that my husband is not going to be okay. So I refuse to receive and accept anything that they were telling me at the time. So time goes by and they're updating me and they're telling me all the processes. They're like, "Okay, he's stable," or, at some point they got him stabilized. And then they eventually said, "Okay, do you want to go up and see him?" But they gave me a warning. They said, "Okay, well, he's going to be very cold." And I said, "Oh, what do you mean?" So they had me come up as they're rushing him out of, I don't know, the very initial stages of trying to revive him. And apparently they put him on ice. There's a lot that I'm learning about cardiac care that I had no clue about. So after they stabilized his heart rhythms, there was this process where they put you on ice and they essentially freeze your body to a certain temperature to preserve your organs.
The organs preserve your blood system.
It's very scientific and amazing. So they did all of that. They kind of had him wheeled out from that initial room to wherever he was going to go in the CCU. And he felt like a very cold corpse when I saw him. He was like laid out and just looked lifeless, and he was cold. But they were like, he's okay. I'm like, are you sure? Okay. So they were getting ready to kind of transport him. And at some point he had to go into the intensive care unit and get hooked on like breathing machines and things like that as they continue to kind of restore him. The process, the science behind it is awe-inspiring. But eventually he ended up in the ICU and he started a rapid recovery. We had friends coming in and out. The word started to spread. The coworkers were in and out. His coworkers in and out. My coworkers in and out. One of his coworkers actually saw him in a state that he shouldn't have saw him in and traumatized him.
Yeah.
But he eventually, overnight, he was just progressively coming back to. So I would say by the next day, I think, did you wake after you went in? I can't recall. But
It was the next day.
may have been the next day or the day after he was able to finally wake up and come to. And of course, I'm there, I'm waiting. The first thing he asked me, he said, what happened?
Well, they had to take the tube out because I was on the ventilator.
So, yeah, eventually you.
I woke up, but I was on the ventilator, had the tube and intubate, all that kind of stuff, whatever. So I was still out of it, but then I could see, people.
Talk, even though he was still intubated, he was trying to talk. He was like, he made such a rapid recovery. But after, I would say it's not the second day, once they took those tubes and things out of him, he was like, what happened?
No. What did I say? I said,
Well, after that,
okay.
and then the next thing he said was like, did we use
Hey, that was the only thing I was worried about. I was like, yes. Because my dumb mind, I'm thinking like, oh, they just went on, they did the championship without me. Like, I'm thinking that. Like, I've never been thinking that.
trying to tell him? Like,
I'm hoping you stopped all activities.
I'm thinking like, all right, because I play sports and people get hurt, you don't stop the game or temporarily, you hear that.
You die.
So that was one of the first things he asked. I was like, "Are you serious? Like, do you realize what did?" I think that was my response to him. I said, "Do you realize what just happened to you?" Because like, no.
I know.
So, but yeah, his recovery. I think after about 3 days, he was kind of getting back to himself. Like, he wasn't able to walk. He had to go through kind of a process of physical therapy and all of that kind of stuff. But I think you were in the hospital about what, 8?
I was 8 days.
8 days.
8 days.
8 days, and then he was back home. But he came home, had to have on like an external defibrillator, monitoring him very closely. But they were, in the meantime, though, they were preparing me for so much because of the trauma that his body went through. The doctors were saying, well, okay, he's clear from this part of all of this, but he may not be himself after this. His quality of life is likely going to be nothing near what it would. Like, they were preparing me for the absolute worst at every stage. They were speaking death over everything. They're like, you just have to be prepared for things to be different. And I was like, okay, whatever God has, we're going to get through it. That's just my mindset. And the recovery that he made, I knew he was going to be okay when he asked, if they won. So mentally, I'm like, okay, mentally.
Because I remember, I remember those things because, one of the things that they, I was when this happens and after I got home, you start doing research. Like, okay, and they told me kind of what happened too. So I suffered cardiac arrest due to a genetic heart disease. It's called arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy. or ARVC. And it's something that really affects, at the time I was 30 something years old. And it's like around that time between, your 20s, 30s or whatever. But unfortunately is most people don't survive. Right? I think it had like a 2% survival rate of that. And even if you did survive, you have some type of maybe brain damage, some maybe, organ damage or whatever the case may be. And so, I'm feeling, honestly, probably by day 4 or 5, like I'm feeling almost normal. I remember like, actually probably even before then, because I remember like watching football in the hospital room. They were like telling me, hey, like you gotta be quiet, 'cause I'm watching my team and I'm watching them play and I'm cheering. And they're like, well, we got other people here that are really mad.
Yeah.
They see you because I was doing so well. And it was like, okay, we get into another room kind of thing. But so I got ruled in there, but I was feeling, for the most part, okay. I still had to, my body still had to get used to doing things again. Had still get used to like just walking
Yeah.
or just like standing for a while. Or, I mean, I've never listened to my heart more than I listen to it even now, honestly. Like listen to like the rhythms. Like I'm literally hearing my heart. I'm listening out for things and I'm super conscious of everything I'm doing. And honestly, it was when I got moved into the other room. And, you got people visiting all throughout the day. My wife was here and I had other coworkers who visit and nurses and people of that nature. And you learn so much about, cardiology and all that kind of stuff. But it was kind of those nights. Those nights were hard in the hospital. Like you talking about really not knowing what just happened, but then worse, you're not knowing what will happen because I had no idea like what my life was going to be like. I had no idea if I was going to be able to just be the same or I was going to be able to do the same things, like play tennis or teach or whatever. Like I had no idea. And those nights were hard, like because all you're left with are your thoughts. Like the room is dark, everything's quiet, people are going to sleep, and I'm just in the bed and I'm just like praying and I'm just thinking like I'm trying to remove all those negative thoughts, capture all those negative thoughts because so many of them started flooding my mind. Like I'm not going to be able to be the same person. Like I'm not going to be able to do certain things or honestly, I'm not going to live for a while. Like this is just like the precursor to another event or something of that nature. And it's hard. And honestly, in those times, you just really have to lean on faith. You have to lean on what God has already told you. You have to lean on the word, the scripture, and honestly, what you know of yourself and what you know of God, and that's what really got me through that time, just really understanding who God was, that he doesn't make mistakes, that even the fact that I could think about these things, that I could walk, that I could eat, that I could do these things, like that was such a sign for me, like, okay, God still has me. Like I'm going through this. I don't know why. I don't know why, but I'm going through this thing. I'm going to get through it because again, like 3 years prior, we just came out of homelessness.
Yeah.
Like we just came out of one of the most traumatic events of our entire life. And 3 years later, I suffer another traumatic event of my life. And so, but during that time, it was just all about remembering what God had told us, knowing who he is, knowing whose we are, and just believing that everything is going to be okay.
So there was no why me.
Oh, I ain't gonna lie, there was. There was. Oh, yeah, there was. There were times, but honestly, I captured those. Like,
Good.
because one of the things that I remember that God said in the wilderness, because I had a dream, and I had so many vivid dreams and visions when I was in the wilderness, and and Crystal would have dreams when she was in there. And one of the things I remember was I had a dream where God specifically told me, he said, I'm not doing this to harm you, but to help. And in that moment, I was like, and I knew exactly what he was saying. He was saying that just like I put all these other people that you hear about, that you read about in the word through these events, they all came out pure gold. And he said, all I'm doing It's helping you become that pure gold that you need to be. And we don't like the process of purification because it burns, it hurts, it stings, it's uncomfortable. But I held on to that in the wilderness, and I held on to that when I suffered my cardiac arrest. And every single time that I go through something, I'm going back to that. Like, I'm not doing this to harm you, but to help you. And so that's what I held on. Even me doing all this research, learning all the negative things that might come my way. Like my lifespan, I think they said that my life expectancy after that event was like between 2 to 4 years, something like that. Yeah, no, it was bleak. Like, honestly, I had to stop reading it.
Condition.
I had to stop reading it because there was nothing positive about it at all. And it wasn't until, I think you had suggested it too, it wasn't until I actually found a group on Facebook. What is it? I forgot what it's called. It's something ARVC.
Yeah.
ARVC Can't Stop Me or something like that. And I saw all these people with all these stories that just like mine, that, no, I'm living my life. You got people out there skydiving. You got people out there, I ain't doing that. But they got people out there I wouldn't do that if I had a good heart, so no. But you have people just living their life. But then at the same time, you had people that were asking real questions like, how did you guys handle this? Like, what was it like? What was it like for your family? Because for me, I don't think I got the worst of it. Like, I think Crystal got the worst of it.
I did.
Because I'm just thinking, like, it's happening to me, but I'm unconscious most of the time. Like, I didn't have to have the phone call. I didn't have to make the phone call. I didn't have to, have all these people, these doctors who, spent thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars to give their education, tell her that her husband's not going to make it. Like, she got the worst of it than I did. And so that's for me, like, I had to learn how to deal with it on my own, on myself, but then even being the person that had something happen to them, I still had to be there for her also,
And you were. I was so
Sure, hearing that.
I was so strong on that day, October 10th. Holy Spirit was just flowing through me. After that, I entered into a grieving process. I grieved the experience. It was tough, and it hit me almost unexpectedly because I feel like I experienced such a high in witnessing a miracle. But then, like Adrian shared, when nights got quiet and everybody was like going off into their own corners and you're just alone with your thoughts. Well, those thoughts attacked me. And I was experiencing why him more so than he was. I got mad at God. I really went there. I was mad. And I was like, after everything we've been through, now this, what is this? Like, I was not happy. So I was crying. I was depressed. I was trying to come to terms with the future. Like, he's sharing all of this bad news that he's reading about his condition with me. I'm looking and researching on my own. And I'm like, what is this? Why is this happening to us? I went through all of that very deeply. I felt it.
So
very
did you keep a strong outward appearance just for him, or?
I had to, yeah, because through all this time, I was still having to show up, unfortunately, to work. And my job at the time was very public facing, so I had to be a strong face. Yes, so at night, it hit me hard, and I was going through it. I had to eventually find, support of a very good therapist because I had a whole lot to work through. So I did that. Yeah. So I got support. I didn't see a way out because I was just feeling so down. But yes, for the world but definitely for I was definitely there. We were supporting one another, giving those butts. That's a beautiful thing about how we operate as a couple. When one is down, the other's up, and they're giving the butts. And eventually we started to just kind of focus on, okay, well, at the end of the day, we have a lot to be grateful for. So we had to be very intentional about leaning into just gratitude of it all, because there was a lot to be grateful for. And that's eventually what helped us through that season. And then over time, Adrian started to recover. His recovery was so quick. And I remember us grieving not being able to play tennis because before his cardiac arrest, we were on the courts like
All the
4 times a week. We were in like almost the best shape we had been in these years.
I mean, too, like we were like out there for like hours. We're being like it was just like let's put the ball on. Like, you were out there hours, out there like 9 o'clock at night. Like we also this is before we had our daughter and everything, and we were just doing it. And but the funny thing is, they said like that was one of the things that helped me
Yep.
was being in shape.
Shape.
That was because again we were always working out, going to the gym, playing tennis, things of that nature. And so that was one of the things that helped me, recover so quickly and things of that nature because, my heart was in shape. So in a sense, like my heart wasn't bad. It was just the cells around it were unstable. And that kind of caused a shock and things of that nature. But just no, I mean, eating decently, working out all the time, things of that nature that actually helped me not only get through that time, but also recovery time too. Because again, like it did not take me long. I was in the hospital for 8 days. I think I went back to work in like 2 weeks.
And I was so against that.
Oh yeah.
Are you going back to work, sir?
Oh yeah.
2 weeks.
That's fair. No, it's 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks. But the
He's
thing
like, this will help me. I need to get out of the house.
yeah, because in the day it was like I didn't want to sit around and just like think about stuff and research more and all this. Like I wanted to get back to my life, and obviously they gave me this vest that was hooked
Huge
up.
life
It was like a life preserver. It really was. But I had to wear like under my clothes and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that shot me back, like just when I'm thinking like I'm good, right? I get back to school, and the one thing they said, was like, well, you put this vest on, don't worry, like, like the only time that it's going to make a noise or any kind of alarm is when you're about to have an episode. And I'm like, okay. So I'm wearing this vest, right? And I'm wearing it around the house and I got to charge it and all that kind of stuff. And it's fine, like no problem, stuff like that. So I go to school and I'm just fine. I'm going to the office, walking to the office, trying to check my mailbox and all that kind of stuff. And then I go through these metal detectors and then it goes off. Like my vest goes off. I'm like, I'm about to die. Like I'm literally thinking I'm about to die right here because they said the only time it's gonna go off is when you're about to have a cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
And it goes off. And I'm like, oh crap, like I'm about to die, like right at school again. Like, and I just had to sit down. People came, it was like, you okay? I was like, I need a minute. And I'm just literally
You came home early then.
I came home, yeah. And I'm literally like going through my mind, like I'm doing like a diagnostic of my body in my mind. I'm like, okay, I feel this. Am I okay? Now the one thing I'm looking for is where's my heart rate? So I had a Fitbit, I think, at the time. I'm constantly checking that thing. It was fine, but it was scary. It was so scary. And then I went home. Oh, I can't do this anymore. And
A little bit of anxiety started to set in.
yeah. But again, I just had to go back to what I know, go back to knowing that I'm good. I'm okay. I'm in his hands. Like, it's not that I'm not, I'm taking precautions. I'm listening to the doctors. I'm doing all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like, I'm receiving what they're saying, but I'm more so receiving what God is telling me. And he's like, I got you. You're okay. You're okay. And eventually, I got to take the vest off. Everything kind of went back to normal. So.
Okay. How long ago was that?
So that was 2018. It'll be 8 years in October. So 7 years.
So every October 10th, he celebrates what we call a rebirth day. So we'll get him cake and use balloons and
T-shirt, and it's a birthday. It's a birthday.
yeah.
Hey, I think you should celebrate a lot in life, but being born again, not in Jesus, but born again, like to have to go through all of that.
Yeah. And he did have this outer body experience.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I didn't even touch on that. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Let me backtrack. All right. So I was in the hospital, and I don't know where I was in the recovery. I'm probably on ice or something like that. And I am not. I'm being so for real. This isn't for the podcast. This isn't for likes or whatever. I'm being so for real. So I feel like I had this dream, and I look back on it like, hey, that wasn't no dream. So I see myself, like I feel like it was a dream. I see myself, I'm hovering literally over my body, and I see my heart rate. And I think at the time my heart rate, what was it? It was like 200 and something beats per minute or something like it was. I forgot. I used to know the exact number. I think it was. I want to say it was 247. I think it was 247 beats per minute, something like that. And I just remember thinking and looking at my body and looking at this machine, and I remember thinking like, why is my heart rate so high? I remember thinking that, and I was like, I feel awesome. Like I feel great. Like I've never felt that way ever in my entire. I felt so. I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's freeing. It's like you're literally float. I mean, literally floating on air. But at the same time, like you don't have anything wrong with you. Like you don't feel anything. You don't feel like your fingers. You don't feel like your heart. You don't feel anything. You're conscious. I was conscious of things, but I wasn't feeling anything. It was the lightest I've ever felt. And I remember thinking to myself, like why, that's weird. Like why is my heart rate so high? And I felt great. And I remember just like this overwhelming experience or the feeling of just like, I feel it's almost like euphoria, like that kind of thing that people talk about, or it felt like euphoric. And then it was gone just like that, right? And then so I wake up, and at some point, I ask my doctor. I said, "How high did my heart rate get?" Because again, I wasn't conscious. I was like, "Did it get?" And I said a specific. I think it was 247 or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the number was, but I was like, "Did my heart rate get to 247?" And he was like, "Yeah. How did you know?" And I was like, "I just know. I just know." I was like, and I didn't say I saw it, but I saw it. I saw the machine. I saw myself. I saw all these different things, but I felt so free and light, and then no pain, no nothing, no worry. No, it was just so blissful. And, you know, fast forward my thinking or whatever, I'm just like, man, if that's how I'm gonna feel going to heaven, I get why people don't want to come back. Like I really feel that. I'm like, I get it. Like in here, you feel all those things. You feel pain, you feel joy, you feel all these, you breathe the air, all that kind of stuff. But when I was in those few seconds that I was, had that experience, and I was like, if God was gonna ask me, as much as I love her, if God was gonna ask me right then and there, do you want to go back or do you want to come with me? I'm just like, let's go. Because I'm like, this is the best feeling of, and I felt a peace about things, but at the same time, I knew God didn't, he wasn't done with me, and so but I always hold that in my heart. Like, I kind of got a glimpse, kind of got a feel like, and again, like, I don't know if people really believe me or not. I'm not trying to do it for likes. I'm not trying to do it for, it's not hyperbole. I mean, I'm dead serious. Like, this is how things went down. And, don't talk too much about it when I'm talking about the event, but it's something though that will always stick with me like forever, really.
That's beautiful. So at that moment, you didn't think it was odd that you were looking at yourself?
No, no. The only thing I thought was odd. I didn't even really look at myself all that much. I saw myself, but my eyes were focused on the EKG machine. And the only thing I thought was odd was how high the numbers were. That's the only thing I thought was odd. I was like, that's weird. Like, why is it so high? And I remember the number, and I forgot it since then because it's been 7 years. But that's the only thing I felt odd about. I didn't feel odd about seeing myself. Didn't feel odd about the fact that I'm floating and not feeling well, like not feeling anything really. The thing that was odd was my heart rate was so high.
Okay. So would it be safe to say that you weren't thinking about anybody else at that time?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because, and I don't know why. I mean, I think God, He works in mysterious ways, and I think, God. One thing I really believe is that God really speaks to you in the way that you're going to hear Him, in a way, And I think He needed to show me. It wasn't about the whole situation. Wasn't about me being in the bed. It wasn't about what happened just now. It wasn't even about how, this thing would affect my wife. It was about him confirming that he was there. Like that was his thing. And that's what I needed to know, that God was there. And therefore it gave me so much peace once I kind of, came to and understood like what happened. That one little thing that he did for those few seconds, that gave me so much peace about it. So where it's like, it wasn't about anyone else. It was like, this is what I needed in the moment so that I could actually be better for myself, but also be better for anyone else, including my wife.
You keep opening your mouth and then you close it. Like,
No, that's so good. Yeah, because I can totally connect with that, because I think had Adrian not had that experiencing that peace of God that surpasses all understanding, he may have struggled differently on the other side.
Absolutely.
Because he's a very masculine type of man, whereas he's the type that's like, well, nobody in my family has ever had this. Like the why meisms really would have set in a different way had it not been for him experiencing that peace. Because when he reflects back on that experience, there's nothing unsettling about it. It's all just the peace and the air of peace around it. And I love that. I love that for him. I love that for me, because he does have that peace. So when we reflect back, when we think about it and talk about it, and when we share, there is a peace about it all that a lot of people in real time, they were struggling with. One of his coworkers, actually counselor, Derek, he said, "Why are you so calm right now?" And I say, you know what? I'm just trusting God right now, And I think that was a blessing. And even as years have gone by, it's still a blessing. Through my mourning period, him kind of having that peace helped me ultimately to just kind of grasp that and really hold on to it moving forward, because it's such a huge part of our testimony. When we share it, we can reflect more so and highlight the goodness of God versus the what about meisms and the bad stuff that's there for the taking, but just not choosing to focus on it, because that's not what has resonated with us through the experience.
So I want to go back to the masculinity. I don't know if I told you this, but you're the first male on my show.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And I pick up on the masculinity. I pick up on the I have to protect my wife. I pick up on the I need to provide for my family. Like in the first part where you talked about the wedding. Your wife said she went to therapy. I didn't hear you say that.
Oh, no, I didn't. I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. And it wasn't even that I didn't want to. I don't know. I guess at the time, obviously, this was before a lot of things that we feel now. Like, and I wasn't so anti-therapy or anything of that nature. It was just more so I had such a peace about it. Like it was just such a thing where it's like, and not that I didn't need it or anything of that nature, but there was so much that I felt like God provided for me in that moment, or even those moments, I would say, not even just one time, that honestly, it didn't even cross my mind, because it wasn't a case where, I didn't feel like I was holding on to anything. I didn't feel like, I had like little moments of why me's, but then that quickly went away. And so I guess I never felt like I really needed it. But at the same time, though, I think it would have been helpful to be able to really grasp things from the outside looking in. And I think it really would have been helpful in the moment. And again, not for me. And I think this is sometimes where guys, what we do is, we tend to be caught up in our own selves and making sure that we're good in terms of like emotional and things of that nature. But the one thing that my experience, we're not the best at being there for our wives emotionally. And I think that what therapy could have done for me, and I wasn't in the mindset at the time, but I think if I was, what therapy really probably could have done for me in that moment was let me understand more about how this affected her and how I could be there emotionally for her. Like I was good. I was good in terms of feeling a certain way, but I didn't know how to really connect with her or even like bring up this whole thing and be prepared to have her be the one that really needed the consoling and things of that nature. So no, I mean, obviously now I'm totally in a different mindset. Like, I've gone to therapy before, so I'm totally not against it at all. But just in that moment, I guess I didn't have the mind, because I'm still, I guess, in a way, dealing with things, and in my own way, I guess, kind of grieving with things, even though, I've been over it. But I think what it really would have helped me do is understand, like, how I need to be there for her, or even other people in my family that, again, like, experience this outside of me. Because I try to think about it. So I have thought about, like, how would it have been if it was the other way around? Like, what would it have been like if I was the one that had to deal with this? And honestly, I can't imagine. Like, I really cannot imagine.
So you couldn't say it.
I would not be able to handle it.
Yeah.
Honestly, not how she did. I would not be able to handle. But I want to pick up on something that she said before too. That a lot of times I feel like people feel like there's this like, chasm between therapy and faith in God. And the thing I felt like really what my wife showed was that they can work hand in hand. Like, it's not like, oh, well, I have God. I pray about it. I don't need therapy. Or it's like, sometimes people substitute God, for therapy. And they say, well, I'm good. I don't need church. Like, my therapist says this, or I do. And I think one thing that my wife showed in that moment and other moments too, is that they can work hand in hand. It's not just you praying. Because the thing about it is, God gives us people in our lives that can help us get through things. Like, yes, he's here all the time with us. But at the same time, it's like he also puts people in our lives to walk with us, and he talks about it in his word about, grieving with those who grieve, mourning with those who mourn, and things of that nature. So we're not meant to live this life of ours, on our own. And I think too many times people feel like you have to do one or the other. And honestly, I feel like even sometimes in church, sometimes churches are hesitant to even help people find therapy or whatever, because they maybe feel like, well, that may be taking somebody away from them, or we have this or whatever. But end of the day, we're all trying to work this together. And I think when we really are in a position where we can combine therapy and faith, then I think so many people will be so much well off when it comes to handling life's events, whether it be homelessness or a traumatic, experience, or even just a breakup. It's not just one or the other. It's both that can really help. So if there's one thing that I would go back and redo, it would be going to therapy, not for myself, but to so that I can know how to be there for my wife during this traumatic, event.
Okay. That's a beautiful note to end on. Except for I have to hear about, real quick, the birth.
What?
Of our daughter. So
I will say, like, you know how we talked about before, how God said that we were going to have a baby?
Mhm.
Well, God told me that prophetically when we were in the wilderness. And I told you before how, like, sometimes he speaks to me in dreams or visions and things of that nature. I had such a vivid dream, or I think it's a vision, where I saw our child. I saw a girl, and she was older. She wasn't like a baby. She was probably like between 8 and 10 years old. And she was just vibrant. She was like jump roping or whatever. And I can tell, like, this was a girl. And the funny thing is, I was like, whose child is that? But then God was like, it was yours, dummy. What do you mean? And in the moment, again, we're in the wilderness. The farthest thing from our mind is having a kid right now. But God showed me that vision of her. And I think that we held on to that. We held on to that when I had my cardiac arrest. And then going forward, when we're thinking about having a kid.
Yeah. And it's certainly something I held on to when they were telling me that he wasn't going to make it. So, we were taking our time after homelessness, even trying to have kids. It wasn't something that we were serious about. I want to say when I got pregnant, I was actually on birth control. And a lot of folks were asking me at the time, they were like, "Are you pregnant?" I'm like, no, there's no way I can be pregnant right now. What are you talking about? And then one of my close colleagues, she was like, I think you're pregnant, girl. So Adrian and I were playing tennis. We were like, play tennis. And something told me, I was like, you know what, I'm late. So we went and got a pregnancy test, and lo and behold, I was pregnant. At least about 11 weeks along. So this was, I think, June 2019. We found out we were pregnant, and
So she a COVID baby.
pre-COVID,
Mhm.
we got lucky. We got lucky. So she was born. Kara was born in January 2020. So we had no clue what was, that COVID was around the corner waiting on us. So yeah, we had her, and we're kind of like a lot of our family down in South Carolina, but a lot of people weren't here kind of live for her birth. People were like, "Oh, we'll come up and we'll come see you guys," and put it off. Yeah, so March 2020 comes around, and we are in full lockdown mode for COVID. So that was a time. That's another story. But
Yeah, we got stories.
But she's such a blessing to us because once, there was a time where, it was a question like, well, I know we heard and saw all of this, but it's taking a little while, and we're not actively trying, but we're not trying.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, because we had been married, 11 years? 11 years already by the time that she was born. But yeah, so she's been a blessing to us. She's just that little girl. So we're grateful to have her and have that story feel like it's come full circle in that way. Because God showed us her a long, long time ago, and it carried us through a lot. So when she gets old enough to understand, we're gonna have all the stories.
And there's nothing like having a cardiac arrest to kind of get the ball rolling on it also.
Yeah.
There were
We were thinking like, it was like, all right, this is kind of like one that like, all right, y'all ain't gonna live forever, ain't gonna be young forever. So I was like, we was like, okay, maybe we need to start thinking about this because we were straight, we were good, like
we were
we
enjoying.
were enjoying ourselves, we were planning on vacations, all that kind of stuff, and then that happened, and it was like, you know what, man, we need to start thinking about this, just see what happens, kind of thing.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming back and sharing with us. And tell us again how we can get in contact with you.
So you can get in contact with us either on our website, www.trinityyouth.org. Also on all socials, Trinity Youth org, and just we are here in the Midlothian area. So is there anytime we have some type of tennis event, we are good.
Yeah, we have a lot of things actually revving up for the spring. So we have youth tennis sessions coming up. We are very affordable, low cost. But our tennis season starts in early March. And then we're just going to be ramping up to May, where we're going to have a big championship community event. And you'll hear more from us soon. We'll be releasing some things on social. So give us a like and a follow.
Alrighty. Thank you. Thank you. I very seldom recommend products unless I like them, I use them, and I agree with them. So when I tell you that this lint-free, no tree, 100% bamboo, biodegradable tissue is strong, 3-ply, and beautiful, I'm trying to tell you Leafy is it. I will leave my coupon code in the bottom of the description. It's DocG25.